Hey everyone, Excoundrel here, going to be talking to you about what I think is probably the best build in the current meta for TFT right now, Mech Infiltrators. And I've created this little infographic so that you guys can kind of have a look about how to play it and how you kind of choose when to play it and what kind of starts you can use to transition into Mech Infiltrator. The beautiful thing about mechs is that you can kind of build them from anything. You only need 3 core units to get the mech online, and then everything else can kind of fall into place beyond that. So let's talk about this infographic and what it means, and then after this I'll have a gameplay video where I talk through a game where I played Mech Infiltrator and the decisions that I had and what I kind of did to get a win with Mech Infiltrators. If you like the content, feel free to like and subscribe, it would really mean a lot to me. So early game, we either look for, or I personally look for, either a Poppy Vanguard build. So we either play Vanguards, where we play Jace, and then we give Jace our Kaisa items, or we can give Jace some of our Shaco items, like GA, for instance, works really well. Mordekaiser can take some of our mech items, and that would allow us to have a pretty good mid-game with Vanguard Jace, and then we transition into mechs later on. We replace those Vanguards once we find Fizz, and we have the 2-star Kaisa and the 2-star Shaco. We could also play Poppy with Mordekaiser or Jace as a second Vanguard, and then we play Star Guardians with Ahri and Zoe, or Ahri and Syndra, and either Syndra or Ahri can have the Kaisa items, because Kaisa also uses similar items to both Syndra and Ahri. If, however, you're doing really well with Poppy Sorcerers, you can essentially just ditch Poppy and Jace and go Mech Sorcerers. I have a build guide on my YouTube channel for that, and that is another way that you can play mechs. You just don't have to play the Infiltrator version, and you have to stack Syndra in the Mech Sorcerer composition. So don't stack Ahri if you're intending on playing Mech Sorcerer. The other build, which you'll see in this video that I quite like playing, is Protector Infiltrator. So you play essentially Xin Zhao Rakan is, in my opinion, the best combo, but you can play Xin Zhao and Jarvan as well in the early game. You look to 2-star as Xin Zhao, and you give Xin Zhao your mech items, so any items that you intend to give to your mech units you would give to Xin Zhao, and then you play Kaisa and Kha'Zix or Kaisa and Shaco. I would play a Kaisa and a 2-star Kha'Zix over a Kaisa and a 1-star Shaco, and obviously you just give your normal Kaisa items to Kaisa and you give your normal Shaco items to Shaco. Then at level 6, as soon as you find Fizz, and arguably I would say if you find a 2-star Annie and a 2-star Rumble, then you throw in your mechs and you replace whatever frontline that you had with those particular carries. And then you put in your Infiltrators on the back line. You'll have 4 Infiltrators, 3 mechs, which would give you your mid-game power spike. And then you roll at level 6 to 3-star your Annie, your Kaisa, and your Shaco, and if you can, your Rumble. Your Kha'Zix and your Fizz do not need to be 3-starred, although Kha'Zix, if you can coincidentally find a Kha'Zix 3-star, it's never going to hurt you. At level 7, I would then add, depending on who I'm stacking, either Sorcerer or a Karma. But Sorcerer in general, like Lux, I think is a really good Sorcerer. She's a great standalone Sorcerer. She's got good CC, so I would throw Lux in, for instance. And then at level 8, I could put in Karma for the 3 Dark Star bonus with my Shaco. And Karma is a really, really good unit to protect either your Kaisa or your Shaco. Or if you want to ditch your Sorcerer bonus and add Mystics, you can add Karma and Lulu. And then at level 9, you could bring the Sorcerer back in. But Karma Lulu would give you the Mystic bonus in case you're going up against Sorcerers. For carries, your mech can have a variety of items. It's incredibly flexible what you give your mech, but GA is a really good item. Ionic Spark is a great item. I quite like Quicksilver because it prevents your mech from getting Zephyr'd, which is a really important thing. Dragon's Claw, I love Bramble Vest on mech, and I love Morellonomicon as well. I'll talk about it why in the video when we do the gameplay. And Kaisa, I think the ultimate items for her, personally, Seraphs and Rabadons is really good, but I do love Morellonomicon on her as well. I think it's very strong. You can also add Demolitionist Charge to get a Demolitionist Kaisa, which is super good with the Rumble, obviously. Or you can add Jeweled Gauntlet if you have no intention of putting in a Valkyrie, so she gets crits on her spells. Shaco items, the ultimate Shaco combination is GA Infinity Edge Bloodthirster, in my opinion. But you can also add things like Rabadon's because it really boosts his damage output on his ability. But I personally prefer GA Infinity Edge Bloodthirster as the best 3-item combo in Shaco. I generally end up I think if I'm getting tiers and rods, I'm going to stack my Kaisa and try and get her 3 items on her. Or if I get the chain vest, the BF sword, the sparring gloves, I'll go for the Shaco stack. Realistically, just spread your items out. Having at least 1 item on your mech is a good idea. But in general, you're going to be looking to stack either Kaisa or Shaco. You very rarely get the items to be able to do both. Shaco is the better 3-star carry, but Kaisa functions very well as well. And that is your overall guide to Mech Infiltrators. Let's dive into a 2x game where I talk about my decisions. Hey guys, let's talk about the strongest build on this current patch. It is Mech Infiltrators. Now, I'm going to talk you through a game. I put it at 2x so we don't have to kind of wait for the very long kind of waits in between each round. And we can talk about the main decision making that I have going on playing through these individual rounds. Now you can see on round 1-3, so just before we come into the first PvP round, I actually found a 2-star Xin Zhao. Now obviously, 2-star Xin Zhao is a good thing to have for a potential protector composition, but I don't actually like protectors at the moment because I feel like they lose pretty heavily to things like Void Brawlers, which is very, very popular, and actually the true damage just goes straight through, and a lot of people are building Red Buff, a lot of people are building Morellonomicon, and it's making it quite difficult to actually play protectors as a whole. So I'm going to talk about the decision-making process that I had and what I kind of used to transition into a Mech Infiltrator build. Now you can see here right now, I have got 2 Protectors and 2 Infiltrators. So I'm running with the fact that I have a Xin Zhao and I'm running with the fact that I have a 2-star Kaisa super early on. I actually have the ability to path into either Protectors or Mech Infiltrators from this position. And you can see the itemization that I've given over to Xin Zhao and the itemization that I've given over to my Kaisa. The reason I'm giving tier to Kaisa is because Seraph's is an absolutely S+ tier item on Kaisa herself. And I'm giving over the Chain Vest to my Xin Zhao specifically because you can, if I'm going Protectors, I can make Bramble Vest. I could make GA, which is a perfectly acceptable item for Xin Zhao, but also GA would be a good item for Shaco. So I'm just giving that over to him because it's a good item for him to have. Any kind of defenses are just really, really good for Xin Zhao in general. And you can see I was so close to losing my early streak here. I maybe should have attempted to try and level up earlier, but I don't think I had the gold. Now look at this carousel. I'm obviously top, so I'm going to be very unlikely to get what I want from this scenario. Both of the tiers have gone, so my priority from this situation here would either be taking the rod or taking the sparring gloves. The reason I'm taking the sparring gloves is because I can either make a thief's gloves for my Shaco if I don't find the correct items for him, or I can use that to make, for instance, a Infinity Edge if I do find the BF swords for Shaco. So I'm taking that over the needlessly large rod because I wouldn't be able to use the needlessly large rod on anything right now. Ideally, I'd either want a Rabadon's or a Morello's for my Kaisa, so obviously a needlessly large rod is something that I'll have to consider in the future. Now you can see that I've got 4 Protectors in the field right now with 2 Celestials. So I've actually taken off the Infiltrator bonus to go for the 4 Protectors. This is, I think, one of the strongest kind of early games alongside 4 Vanguards that you can get. I just think 4 Protectors is really strong. You kind of want to 2-star your stuff though. The thing is, Protectors scale off their own max HP. So therefore, the higher the level, the higher the XP your, the higher the HP your Protectors have, the better. So this is why in this situation, getting 2 stars for Protectors if you want to go for Protectors is pretty important. But you can see that I have not taken the Xin Zhao here just because I think I'm pretty committed to not going Protectors. I think Protectors are good, and I think Protectors are a good top 4 comp. And versus the right types of compositions, I genuinely think Protectors are top tier. But I just think in this situation, it's much better to sort of go for Mech Infiltrator. And the reason I'm going for Mech Infiltrator here is because no one else, once you can see me scouting around, no one else is actually going for mechs. There was someone going for some Shacos, but there's no one else going for mechs, which was absolutely insane, which is why I decided to go for Mech Infiltrators in the first place. Now, you saw me sell off a couple of things. You also saw me buy Ziggs and then combine Morello's on him and then give that Morello's over to my Kaisa. That's a really basic way and a really handy little tip. If you have items that you want to combine on a unit that already has 1 item component on them, buy a very cheap, or to be honest, anything from the shop, combine it on there and then sell them, because then you have the combined item and you can throw it on whichever carry you want. So in this scenario here, I am wanting to protect my win streak as much as possible, but I also feel like with the Morello's on my Kaisa, we're in a really, really strong spot. When you have Morello's on Kaisa, you want to make sure that she's hitting as many people with her ability as possible, so you want to put her in the middle of the back line, because you want her to essentially hit with her max health percentage shred. You want to essentially let her hit as many people as she can, and that's why I would recommend going for a middle positioning with your Kaisa early on. You can also see here that I picked up the next level, so I went to level 6. and I just dropped a little bit of gold to essentially protect my win streak. So going to level 6 here is to protect my win streak. I added in Jarvan for the 4 protectors, and my mid game is now 2 Celestial, 2 Infiltrator, 4 protectors. I am going to slowly, where I can, build up the mechs in my composition. So what I'm looking for now is to go to 50 gold. Now there are a couple of things that I could also do to try and protect my win streak. I could go for a Shaco too, which would require a bit of rolling, but I do think the best scenario for me here right now is to go to 50 gold, and then at level 6 start rolling for the important 2 costs that I want in this composition, which is Annie and Kaisa, but also try and look for my important mechs as well, because now I'm level 6, there is a bigger chance of me finding Fizz. As soon as I find Fizz, as well as potentially finding the rest of my 2 stars, I'll be essentially throwing my protectors in the bin and combining to get the mech. But right now, protectors are doing a really good job. Xin Zhao is carrying me through the mid game because he's 2-star with the protector bonus, which is fantastic. Now in this scenario, Recurve Bow is one of the worst items you can have for Mech Infiltrators, I feel, so I've gone for the Chain Vest. Well, the Chain Vest will serve 2 purposes here. It could be a GA for Shaco, and it could also very likely be a Bramble Vest or a GA for my mech. So that's why I have chosen to go for the Chain Vest in this scenario. I don't have the optimal items for this composition right now. Ideally, I would like more needs to large rods. I'm essentially playing the Kaisa game at this point. My items favor Kaisa than they do Shaco, so I think realistically, unless I get a massive turnaround in items, what I do is I end up giving the second Brawler's Glove over to my Shaco to give him a Thief's Gloves, and Thief's Gloves in general will be pretty positive for Shaco overall. So I find the 2-star Rumble here, but now I'm obviously looking for a Fizz to try and combine to get the mech on the field. As soon as I can get the mech on the field, the better. But obviously I roll a little bit further. I get a couple of mechs. I get a couple of Rumbles, a few Annies and a Kaisa, but I'm not going to go below 30 gold here. The most that I want to spend is just to try and protect my win streak. I'm very strong with a Morello's Kaisa right now. Now remember how we got here. We played the early game with protectors. You can do the same with Vanguards, for instance. I picked up 2 Infiltrators, which is a really, really good early synergy in general. So I picked up 2 Infiltrators, and then I transitioned from that into potentially trying to remove my protectors for mechs. As soon as I find Fizz, I'll drop all of my protectors. I'll bring 2-star Shaco on. I'll have 4 Infiltrators, 3 mechs at level 6, which is very, very strong. So you can see here there's another Annie, which is important because getting a 2-star Annie will be good. I also find the Fizz, and this is now the time where I say, cool, let's just sell everything, let's throw everybody on the field. I find a 2-star Shaco, and honestly, there were a couple of decisions that I can make here. Now, what will happen is usually I will wait. If I'm doing well, I will usually wait until the next neutral round. So when I get to the I don't even know what they're called, the chickens, the space chickens. Once I get to the space chickens, then I'll potentially consider throwing items onto Shaco, for instance. Right now, I'm looking at the combinations that I've got. The best two combinations of the remaining items that I have is a Bramble Vest on my Garen, or rather my Annie, which turns into my Garen, and then giving the Thieves Gloves over to my Shaco. But there isn't really much point right now because I'm winning every round that I play, so I don't have to worry too much about making rash itemization decisions. Likely, if I can get an Infinity Edge, it would be better. If I can get a GA, it would be better for those particular units, but of course, I'm not going to try and rush anything. Now, as you can see, I found an absolutely metric crapload of Shacos. Now, when you're playing Mech Infiltrator, unlike a lot of other compositions, you don't actually want to level 7 as quickly as possible. What you want to do is, at the point where you're level 6, where you have a high chance of finding 2 costs and 3 costs, because your chances of finding 2 costs and 3 costs at level 6 are both 35% equally. What you want to do is you want to roll as much as possible to find your Annies and your Kaisas, and obviously then pick up any Shacos or Rumbles that you find along the way. And if you can afford to, obviously try and pick up the Kha'Zixes. But realistically, you're probably going to run out of bench space before you can find the Kha'Zixes. And then, once you've probably found like Annie 2 and Kaisa 2, then you want to go to level 7, and then you can add in a Sorcerer bonus, for instance, and then you can add... try and find your Shacos and your Rumbles, because your chance of finding 3 costs goes up by 5% at level 7. So I'm really, really close to a lot of really important milestones here, as you can see. So I'm going to start rolling a bit more aggressively. I found a 2-star Fears, which is really big. I also find a load of Kaisas, which is fantastic. And now I'm 1 Rumble away, as well as I've just got 2 Kaisas to pick up here. So I actually end up selling the Annie. And this is, unfortunately, one of the side effects of trying to go for too many 3-stars at once. I just don't have the bench space. But I am closest to Rumble and Shaco, so I sell the Annie. And now I'm going to have a 3-star Kaisa going into the next round, which is brilliant. It means I don't have to worry too much, and I can basically just run my economy a little bit. I do roll down a bit further here, trying to find as many things as possible. And you can see I roll all the way down to 12. I had a guy in the lobby saying congratulations on your 100% HP win here. The reason I've got the logo over the chat, by the way, is because I had some friends who just constantly spamming me, so I couldn't actually include that in the video. But you can see we are starting to struggle a bit more than we were previously, even with the 3-star Kaisa. However, we're in a good enough spot right now that we don't really need to roll. We're on a massive win streak, so we're maintaining a huge win streak bonus each round. So this neutral round will also get us a win streak bonus, and I think we just want to try and play it a little bit safer. Now, what happens after this neutral round is if I don't get the items that I want, for instance, if I don't get BF swords, I'm actually not going to bother trying to get the perfect items on my Shaco. If you can't find the perfect items in your Shaco and you're instead choosing to stack your Kaisa, it is perfectly okay to just say, cool, I'm just going to go for the Thief's Glove Shaco, because Shaco can use a lot of items, and he actually does well with both defensive and offensive items, so that's why I decided to make that call. You can see I leveled up to 7 here. The reason I leveled up to 7 is because I got a couple of really important 3-stars. I found the Lux, and the Lux is giving me the Sorcerer bonus now, so that's going to massively impact the damage that my Kaisa is doing. And in terms of itemization of my Kaisa, I wouldn't say it's completely perfect. I wouldn't say the itemization of my Kaisa is perfect. If you have a look, my Kaisa has got Seraphs and Morellos and Jeweled Gauntlet, all of which are fine. Now, obviously, because Kaisa is a Valkyrie, you could add a Valkyrie bonus and allow her to automatically crit below 50% HP, but this just means that she gets a more initial burst off potentially by critting with her spells. So Jeweled Gauntlet is a perfectly good item on Kaisa, as is Seraphs. I then also added the Morellos early on because it allowed me to snowball, and Morellos is a perfectly good item, especially against Protectors. It's nice to have that on Kaisa because she can get a lot of debuffs onto the entire team. The other good items that work in Kaisa are Rabadon's Death Cap, Demolitionist's Charge, because that works with Rumble when your Kaisa can stun everybody with her ultimate. So there are a lot of really good AP items that do work on Kaisa, and obviously it is important that you know which items are best, but the items that I have on her right now are perfectly acceptable, and if you can't find anything better, that's okay. So we are now at the next carousel. There are a couple of items here that would work well. For instance, Jeweled Gauntlet and Hextech Gunblade, but actually an item that I love with Mech Garen is the Morellonomicon, because again, he is an AoE ultimate. So if Garen can get off his ability, he actually does an area of effect, essentially massive burn, and also does an area of effect, a healing debuff, which is again very good versus Protectors. And then I give it to Rumble after that because he does a lot of AoE damage with his ultimate as well. I could give it to Annie, but she's not 3-star. I'd rather give the items over to Rumble at this point in time. And you can see this is where the Protectors ended up handing me a loss. Unfortunately, I'm just not strong enough to deal with them right now. But, you know, I'm very close to a 3-star Annie at this point. I'm going to roll a little bit further here. Don't want to roll too hard, but I do find the Annie in the end, which is absolutely fantastic. And now we have 3 stars on everything that really counts at this point in time. 3-starring Fizz is massively surplus to requirements. You don't really need to do that. But 3-star Rumble, 3-star Annie, 3-star Kaisa, and 3-star Shaco is just absolutely ridiculous. And Shaco picking up some good items as well with Thief's Gloves is definitely helping me out in some of these scenarios. So what do I do here? What do I do at this situation where I'm now level 7 and I've 3-starred everything? Well, there are a couple of other interesting synergies that you can add, especially if you go to level 8, for instance. I quite like adding Darkstar. I think, especially if you've got a 3-star Shaco, always adding Darkstar is going to be fine. So I quite like adding Darkstar to the scenario, and that will give you a Darkstar Shaco, and then obviously with the Lux adding the Sorcerer, you can also then add Karma to protect and increase the attack speed on one of your most important carries, for instance Kaisa or Shaco. I also end up giving the what the hell is that item called? The Gauntlet. That Gauntlet thing. I also end up giving that Gauntlet thing over to Rumble, just because I think it's a good item. that, you know, could potentially block a really important spell and also stun one of the most important spellcasters on the enemy team. This guy's playing full Star Guardian Sorcerers, by the way. They just constantly spam spells, and you can see I end up losing. But one of the beautiful things about having the win streak early on by playing the Protectors Infiltrators is simply that we have so much HP to spare, so I can afford to take a couple of losses at this point, because realistically the worst that's going to happen to me is just letting, you know, the enemies kill each other. I end up giving the Frozen Heart over to Karma. The reason I give Frozen Heart to Karma, by the way, is not really because it's a particularly good item for her. It's just that the tier component gives her a bit of extra mana, which is fantastic. And now that we've got some extra additions and we've got some extra 3-stars, we do make short work of the Protector comp, but also we have the Morellonomicon on our Garen, which does some AoE damage, which is fantastic. I'm actually going to switch my Karma over to... I actually switched my Karma here over, and I actually put in Mystics over Darkstar. The reason being is the last guy I left alive is the Sorcerer comp, the Star Guardian Sorcerer comp. So by adding Mystics, everybody survives just a little bit longer, and that allows me to get the win and get the kill. And there you go, first place win with Mech Infiltrators in 15 minutes. Hope that was useful.